I'm Dr. Dan Gerber. I'm a faculty in public health and community health education. I have about 20 years of overseas experience, international experience, mostly in Asia, but around the world, working in communities before I became an academic, and I joined the public health faculty about 15, 16 years ago. I've been here at UMass. Okay, so in 2006, Sharon Frost, as vice provost, got together, the faculty senate got the faculty council together, and there's been a movement across America for word scholarly engagement. The reason why is because outreach is a one-direction word. I would say many people on this campus would understand outreach. That's basically what mainstream or dominant faculty might do, is just go out and lecture. But we know different. Those of us who have been working in the community all our lives know that it's actually a reciprocal. It's a two-way street. We want a bottom-up advisor to our chancellor. We want to review the reward system for our faculty and our staff. And we're going to ask, but the civic learning engagement becomes one of our prominent ways of learning on our campus.
Every so often, we ask the question, what is the campus doing in a particular city? What is the campus doing, across the Commonwealth, across the nation? And it's always a fire drill for what we want to do. And when it comes time for us to apply for engaged status at the Carnegie Foundation, it's a hell of a lot of work. So what we finally decided to do in university relations, at the urging of our Faculty Senate Outreach Council and our Provost Office, was actually put together a website, but for the first time would actually create a living repository of the activities that our campus, our faculty and our staff are engaged with the community doing, either research and teaching off campus or engaged somehow with a community partner.
Democracy is in trouble. And higher education, especially public higher education, is part of the solution. A lot of people are saying this around the country. The Association of American Colleges and Universities recently issued a report called A Crucible Moment, a national call to action about college learning and democracy's future. And it's a pretty smart report. It talks about the role that higher education needs to play in preparing students who come through our portals to live lives as engaged citizens of this society. In the state, the Department of Higher Education has something called the Vision Project for public higher education throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the Vision Project has a bunch of goals for public higher education, and the goal they added last is civic learning and civic engagement. And so they're now saying to all the public institutions in the state, you need to be focused on civic learning and civic engagement, as well as the other things that you're doing. And they're still figuring out how exactly that might be done. And so there's a whole process of figuring that out that I've had the privilege to be part of.
People have talked about how it's part of our mission that we are an engaged campus, that UMass has a very long and proud history of being an engaged campus. And as we've been talking about engagement, we realize that there are many different ways in which faculty and students can become engaged beyond the academy and also serve different communities and constituencies. And what I'm going to be focusing on mostly, at least for the first part of my few minutes, is the UMass Public Engagement Project and the types of things that we do. And in particular, we're an interdisciplinary group. We're actually an interdisciplinary group of interdisciplinary groups, in particular the Center for Research on Families, our program, the Psychology of Peace and Violence program, Department of Sociology, that includes many members of the new Institute for Social Science Research, and the Center for Public Policy and Administration. And we basically all kind of saw the need many years ago to try to have more coordinated efforts in sharing the information that we have to broader audiences. So what are the types of things that we do? Well, first we had to try to figure out what we were hoping to achieve. So we started talking about what public engagement really is. And generally speaking, it involves the translation and dissemination of our scholarly work to inform public policy and public discourse. And in particular, what we do is try to train and support faculty who are interested in having an impact in the public realm, to make their research as available and accessible as possible to people outside of the academic community. I think oftentimes when we think about public engagement, we have this tendency to think about getting involved in public debate or talking with news outlets and things like that. And I and others in our group have done a lot of this work. So part of it involves, yes, disseminating theory-based research to people who might be able to use it, either to inform public debates by having things represented in the media, or, for example, upcoming court cases where legal counsel, in this case it was the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, asking what is the most relevant research on racial integration that can help to be used to support the cases that we're working on here. So those are some examples, but as Dan also pointed out, it's a reciprocal process, right? So we don't simply want to disseminate what we do, but we also want to hear back from policymakers and advocates about the types of research they need to understand social phenomena. And then I actually just want to finish up by talking about another example of engagement that I think sometimes gets overlooked, except for, of course, in John's comments, which is the idea of engagement as a way of training future generations of scholars. In addition to us trying to promote our work or get it out there in the public sphere, I think it's also really important for us to work with students in how we develop socially relevant research questions and help to train them in how to bridge research and practice.
So, as a legislator, at first as a former student on the campus, and as was pointed out, I started one of these programs before it had a name. I did a lot of things before I understood what it was actually called, like environmental scan and needs assessment and all of the stages you would go through to figure out what the community needs from you. And I didn't know that it had a name, I just sort of did it. And it all came out okay. And the Arts Extension Service is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It's still an ongoing, existing organization on this campus, and it serves not only the state but nationally. And the 2-minute version is the Division of Continuing Ed wanted to extend the arts resources of the campus. I was asked as a student, as a work-study job to figure out what to do. I did the needs assessment. I realized that the arts departments on campus had a totally different idea of what they wanted to do out there, and the communities would have liked that, but they weren't prepared for it. So I had to figure out how to create the bridge so that this could work. And I ended up going to the State Arts Council, which rebuffed me because I was taking them in a direction they didn't want to go, which was popular culture, figuring out where people were now, helping them figure out where they wanted to go, and then helping them learn and use the university resources to get there. And they said I was going to pollute the culture of Massachusetts because we should only be supporting high culture, not popular culture. And short story is I put together a plan, got some external grant funding over the objections of the Arts Council, and came up with a plan. And then other people in the state figured out what we were doing and said, that's the direction we want to go in. They filed legislation. I didn't have anything to do with this, because these were big people and they could get stuff done, and they got the legislation through and created law where every city and town could have an arts council appointed by the local government and receive state funding. That was 35 years ago. It is still the only state in the country doing that. That started here at UMass Amherst, trying to figure out how to get the music and art faculty out into the communities and what the university needed to do to try to help make that possible. So lots of progress. Thank you, all 4 of you. You're all doing stuff that really just, it's so clear in this 150th anniversary year that we still get what a land-grant institution is supposed to be doing.